Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Armand, and I'm the moderator for tonight's meeting, and we really appreciate you joining us tonight. Tonight's meeting is to share information and receive feedback on the MBTA's proposed FY2024-2028 Capital Investment Plan. I'd like to introduce the interpretation services for this public meeting, and our interpretation for tonight will be in both Spanish and Chinese. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. As mentioned, I'd like to introduce our interpretation services for this evening. We have Tracy Pichardo, as well as Annie Ni. Tracy Pichardo is our Spanish language interpreter, and our Chinese language interpreter is Annie Ni. Tracy, Annie, would you like to interpret this last slide for us?
Hi, team. I will go first. Spanish interpreter Tracy. Hola, buenas tardes. Ofrecemos interpretación en español durante esta junta. Para escoger el audio en inglés o en español, tendrás que seleccionar el botón de interpretación, la cual tiene una imagen, por ejemplo, de un mundo globo. Cuando usted seleccione la interpretación, por favor, coger el idioma cual le gustaría escuchar o de su preferencia. Buenas tardes. Thank you, team.
Annie?
Hello. Hi, this is Annie. I am the Mandarin Chinese interpreter. 大家好，我们今天晚上的会议会提供口译服务，可以在你的会议网络研讨会的空间中点击口译，然后选择小地图标，然后点击你想听到的语言。谢谢。
Thank you both. If you require these services, please click the interpretation button on your screen, the globe icon, and select your preferred language. Next slide, please. We also have ASL interpretation for tonight's meeting. Our interpreters are Carrie McSwain and Denise Garcia. If you'd like ASL interpretation, keep your view settings in gallery mode. To pin the interpreter's video, click the ellipses in the top right corner of the interpreter's video and select Pin Video. You'll need to repeat this process each time we switch interpreters. Closed captioning is also available. Please click the CC button at the bottom of your screen, and the captions are able to be moved to align with your needs. Next slide, please. Before we get started, I'd also like to review a few meeting controls for folks who are not familiar with Zoom as well. If you need technical assistance with Zoom, please chat tech support. They're labeled chat tech support in our chat. You can also ask a question about the presentation directly to Ask Questions here. At the end of the presentation, you can also raise your hand and we can unmute you. So there are two ways for us to receive comments, both in chat as well as verbal. Further, we'd like to emphasize on the next slide that all MBTA activities, including public meetings, are free of discrimination. The MBTA complies with all federal and state civil rights requirements preventing discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, limited English proficiency, and additional protected characteristics. We welcome the diversity from across our entire service area. If you have any questions or concerns, please visit mbta.com/Title6 to reach the Office of Diversity and Civil Rights. Before passing the conversation along to Jillian Linnell, who will be spearheading this presentation, we'd like to introduce our new General Manager, Phil Eng, who would like to express a brief hello to all of you.
Thank you, Ashley, and I want to thank the whole team for this effort. These public meetings and the participation is invaluable to us as we craft and develop and shape the 24 to 28 Capital Investment Plan. I know that the information we share is of strong interest to obviously everybody across the state and in the greater Boston area. And at the same time, I know how important a balanced program is, one that protects our investments on maintenance and state of good repair to ensure that safe service and reliable service is provided today, but also allows us to balance it with the needs of the future so we can continue to build for future generations. And so it's very vital. And to the public that's taken the time out of their busy day to share their thoughts with us, I want them to know that we really care and value that time. and all of their feedback will be taken into account as we develop this and put this in out for a final plan. So I thank you very much to everybody, Ashley. And I really appreciate a few minutes to just thank everyone for that and look forward to a very robust feedback from the public.
Thank you, General Manager Ng. We really appreciate your words. Jillian, the floor is yours.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. That was a wonderful welcome and kickoff. So thank you both. All right. Good evening, everyone. And thank you for joining us tonight for our third and final public meeting on the MBTA's proposed fiscal year 24-28 Capital Investment Plan. As I've already been introduced, my name is Jillian Linnell, and I am the Senior Director of Capital Program Planning at the T. We are planning to spend some time at the top of the meeting today to go through a brief presentation outlining what is currently included in the fiscal year 24-28 CIP, which was released for a 30-day public comment period on Thursday, March 23rd. After the formal presentation, we should have plenty of time, and we look forward to hearing from all of you. So to get us started, the MBTA's Capital Investment Plan is a short-term, financially constrained investment program that includes all of our capital expenses for the next 5 years. It's a rolling plan that we update annually. It funds planning, design, construction, maintenance, and acquisition of capital assets across the entire transit network. Next slide, please. To help set the stage for what is included in the capital plan, this slide offers a high-level look at the MBTA system, which includes 3 heavy rail lines, 2 light rail lines, bus, commuter rail, ferry, and the ride, which is the MBTA's paratransit service. Also included on this slide are the number of stations or stops on each of those lines, the total number of vehicles in our inventory that provide service across those different modes, and the total number of riders reflected as an average of weekday trips as of October 2019 and October 2022. Thank you. So over the last 5 to 7 years, the MBTA has dramatically increased our overall capital spend, and we continue to sustain an unprecedented level of investment focused on the safety and reliability of our system, the modernization of our assets, and the strategic expansion of our network. Many of these capital investments, some of which are highlighted here on this slide, have been in the works for a number of years and continue to produce real and significant improvements to the condition of the MBTA's many assets. Next slide, thank you. Looking at the development of the 24-28 capital plan, the agency focused on a number of key policy objectives, including, first, the prioritizing of safety and reliability investments, the building towards enhanced and improved system accessibility, and finally, promoting system sustainability and resiliency. These objectives will be covered in more detail later in the presentation. So consistent with previous years, the MBTA does undertake a robust process that strives to build a capital plan that reflects a balanced portfolio of investments. The CIP development process, as outlined here, includes 6 key steps. The process begins with the collection of updated cash flows for all of our existing capital projects, which helps inform our understanding of available sources and our estimate of the funding level that we expect across the 5-year window. Each year, we conduct a call for projects where sponsors from MBTA departments submit requests for funds. These requests include new capital projects and/or additional funds for existing projects. All requests are scored by small cross-functional evaluation teams using criteria that include system safety and security, mobility, cost effectiveness, sustainability and resiliency, policy support, social equity, and economic impact. The CIP is sorted into distinct programs, and in advance of prioritizing our investments, program sizes are set based on the priorities of the agency. Then, using the results of scoring, prioritization meetings are held with MBTA leadership to determine project priorities within each CIP program. Project recommendations from the CIP prioritization process are incorporated into the 5-year CIP based on priority, capacity, and availability of funds. The exercise of constraining annual cash flows to available sources and delivery capacity is referred to as sequencing. The proposed 5-year CIP is presented to the MBTA board and released for a 30-day public comment period before being finalized and then presented back to the board for approval. Thanks. The MBTA CIP is a priority-driven investment strategy and is broken out into a priorities and program structure. The highest level of organization is the priority and it's divided into 2 distinct priorities. The first is reliability and modernization, which focuses on investments that improve the safety and reliability of the system, along with the modernization of our assets. The second priority is expansion, which includes targeted investments to increase system capacity or multimodal options. Underneath the 2 investment priorities are our 10 CIP programs outlined here. All projects in the CIP are sorted into one CIP program. And as I mentioned, programs are sized annually to align with the agency's needs and our strategic goals. Moving on to sources, there are 4 primary categories of sources that the MBTA receives and utilizes to support the capital program. They include federal funds, state funding, MBTA funding, and what we often refer to as other or reimbursable sources. Starting on the left-hand side of this slide with federal funds, the MBTA receives formula funding through 3 programs administered by the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA. Each of these programs has their own unique goals and objectives. The first program is the Urbanized Area Program, or what we commonly refer to as Section 5307. The second is the Bus and Bus Facilities Program, or Section 5339. And the third is the State of Good Repair Program, or Section 5337. These 3 formula programs provide predictable annual funding levels to support the MBTA's capital program. In addition, the MBTA is eligible and is often awarded competitive funding grants from a range of federal agencies, including USDOT, FTA, and FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration. Once these discretionary grants are awarded, those funds are then reflected as sources in the capital plan. Moving on to available state sources. The MBTA currently receives state funding as either Commonwealth Rail Enhancement Bonds or Commonwealth General Obligation Bond proceeds, or bond cap. These sources primarily support specific projects such as South Coast Rail Phase 1, GLX, the Red Line, Orange Line vehicles and infrastructure improvements, and the procurement of bi-level commuter rail coaches. The third type of funding included in the CIP are MBTA sources. The first subcategory are bonds, which broadly include taxable, tax-exempt, and sustainability bonds, which are made available each year to support the overall capital program. A second component of our MBTA sources are Build America Bureau loans, which the MBTA can pursue to support large federally eligible capital projects. There are 2 programs, TIFIA, or the Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, which provides loans for transit projects, and secondly, RIF, the Railroad Rehabilitation and Improvement Financing Program, which offers loans to finance railroad infrastructure. There are 2 more MBTA sources. First is operating budget transfers, which are funds that pass through from the MBTA's operating budget to the capital program. And then finally, there is the Capital Maintenance Fund, which is a limited fund held by the authority that may be used at the discretion of the CFO. The final type of funding that the MBTA receives are reimbursable sources, or funding from outside sources that are established through partnerships or formal agreements to complete a specific scope of work. So moving on from sources to what projects are included in the 5-year plan. As it is currently drafted, The 5-year CIP includes 600 capital projects representing $9.2 billion in programmed spend, with projects being executed by 30 MBTA departments. Reliability and modernization investments account for the majority of the planned and underway investments, representing $8.7 billion of anticipated spend. And there are also 10 expansion projects representing just over $500 million of program spend. Included on this slide on the right-hand side are the top 15 projects as defined by fiscal year 24 to 28 projected spend. And many of these are well-known and underway investments, including South Coast Rail, GLX, fare transformation, a number of notable vehicle procurements, such as the Red Line, Orange Line vehicles, the Green Line Type 10 vehicles, hybrid buses, and the bi-level commuter rail coaches. Also included in this list is the Quincy Bus Facility Modernization Project, the Safety Critical Green Line Train Protection Project, track and signal work, ATC implementation, and North Station Drawbridge 1 replacement. Looking just at new funding in the proposed 24 to 28 CIP, this year we added just under $1 billion total in new funding that was programmed across the 5-year CIP window. This includes some existing projects that have received additional funds and also new projects. A total of 78 projects received new or additional funding, with 43 of those being new projects to the MBTA's capital plan. In the bottom left of this slide, you can see the breakdown of new and existing funding by CIP program. And then on the right-hand side, this list shows the top 25 safety-related projects that are receiving new funding in the capital plan. Safety-related projects is defined by projects that have been tagged as safety sensitive due to safety components or related safety benefits that help reduce potential hazards and identified safety issues. Overall, this demonstrates a clear focus by the agency on key safety and state of good repair investments across the entire network. Next slide, please. So the next 3 slides offer a more detailed look at key policy objectives of proposed 24 to 28 CIP, which I introduced at the top of the presentation. As noted, the first objective is the prioritizing of safety and reliability. There are over 475 safety-sensitive and reliability projects in the MBTA's capital program. This includes projects to support the authority's response to the FTA's safety management inspection, over 300 critical reliability projects that will inspect, repair, and upgrade the MBTA's assets, and more than 20 projects focused on safety systems, training, and asset management solutions. On the right-hand side of each of these slides, we have also noted a number of projects by mode that prioritize safety and reliability. And for each of these spotlight slides, I would also note that additional details on each of these projects and on these areas can be found on the MBTA's website. Next slide, please. Thanks. The CIP is also focused on bringing enhanced and improved system accessibility. And to support this goal, the plan includes over 90 projects with significant accessibility benefits to enhance and improve system access, accounting for roughly $1.9 billion of program spend. This includes over 40 projects that will enhance accessibility at the MBTA stations, bus stops, rail and grade crossings, upgrades to platforms, path of travel, surfaces, and public announcement systems. There are also over 35 projects to improve elevators, escalators, wayfinding, and access ways system-wide. And finally, the CIP includes a number of key vehicle procurements, which will result in improved accessibility features for our riders. Next slide, please. Finally, the capital plan is focused on promoting system sustainability and resiliency, with over 150 projects accounting for roughly $3.6 billion. There are over 70 projects with system resiliency benefits included in the CIP that will support the hardening of the system against flooding and other extreme weather events. There are also over 20 projects with system sustainability benefits supporting system electrification and the reduction of carbon emissions related to our fleet, facility, and our energy assets. Finally, there are over 50 projects with varying resiliency and sustainability benefits that help support a green and resilient future at the MBTA. Before moving off the topic of sustainability and resiliency, I do want to take a moment and highlight some of the key efforts the agency is currently advancing to support the electrification of our bus and commuter rail network. On the bus side, the CIP includes investments which support the MBTA's bus electrification strategy. Specifically, it includes key investments like the procurement of battery electric buses to initiate the conversion of our fleet to zero-emission technology, and the modernization of 3 bus facilities, Quincy, North Cambridge, and initial design funding for Arborway. All 3 facilities will support our future battery electric bus fleets. On the commuter rail side, we are continuing to invest in the first phase of regional rail transformation as defined by the FMCB to deliver electrified service to the Providence, Stoughton, Fairmont, and Newbury Rockport lines. The CIP includes planning and studies to help inform the implementation of rail transformation. It includes initial planning support for the procurement of a future fleet to deliver electrified rail service, and has an immediate focus on no regrets investments, which will provide benefits to customers regardless of the fleet or power technology that is ultimately chosen. Examples of some of these no regrets investments include turn track improvements at key locations that will enable higher frequency service. To support the rollout of the proposed 24 to 28 CIP, we have developed and released a standalone 5-year MBTA CIP book that is available on the MBTA's website. This document is structured around 4 main components. First is an overview of the CIP, which includes details about what the capital plan is, how it is funded, our investment objectives, and the annual development process. The second section is a summary of fiscal year 24 to 28 investments and funding awarded to new and existing projects. This section also includes an overview of our safety and reliability, system accessibility, and system sustainability and resiliency objectives. The third section includes 1-page overviews for each CIP program and a breakout of the entire CIP by mode and line. Finally, there is a detailed listing of all capital projects included in the CIP, including a brief project description, phase, primary mode, planned 5-year spend, total authorized budget, and within this project list, we do specifically note which projects have received new funding in the 24 to 28 capital plan. Finally, to accompany the publishing of the CIP document, we are also inviting public engagement and comment through multiple channels. Central to our public engagement process are the 3 public meetings. As I noted, today is the final one, and we appreciate your participation here today. In addition, we would like to encourage everyone to share their comments using our online public comment tool, and we will also be accepting comments via email or letter. The public comment period will wrap up on April 24th. You can go to the next slide. We will then finalize the fiscal year 24 to 28 CIP and will return to the MBTA board for a vote to approve in May. With that, I will conclude the formal presentation portion of tonight's public meeting, and I will turn it back over to Ashley.
Thank you, Jillian. And thank you, General Manager Ang, for all of your comments and this presentation. It was wonderful. Everyone, if you'd like to share a comment or ask a question, please use the chat feature at the bottom of your screen to submit your typed question or comment to ask questions here. We'll also be taking verbal comments, so you can use the raise hand function and a member of the team will unmute you. Members of the CIP team will be answering your questions. So I'd like to note that we'll alternate between reading questions and comments already submitted through the chat, as well as recognizing those who want to pose a question verbally. If you wish to share a comment, for those joining the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing star and then 9, so star 9. And all attendees who speak other languages, you can raise your hand to provide comments and questions verbally for the interpreters to hear, both Chinese and Spanish, and we will repeat those comments as well. So before we open the comment and question period to the public, we'd like to invite any of the elected officials in attendance or their staff to ask questions or make comments. You can use the raise hand feature so that we can recognize and unmute you. We see that Senator Brendan Crichton, Chair of the Transportation Committee, has RSVP'd, as well as Representative Hawkins. So are you both in the room? Great. Okay, see you both here. We can start with Representative Hawkins, and then we can go to Senator Crichton.
Okay, now I'm unmuted. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for this series. It's very generous of you to spend your time listening to us talk about this. And I appreciate, I'm very concerned, obviously, about the commuter rail station in South Attleboro, and I appreciate the chance to talk 3 times about it. And as such, I promise not to dominate this meeting. Other people have questions besides me. And I particularly enjoyed the in-person one last week. Next time, do more in person. I thought that was much friendlier. So a couple of things that I didn't mention before is the connection between this station, or what's like that, not the lack of connection since it's closed, to the community. One has to do with local development, how people moved out of Boston during the pandemic, and it just flooded the area. I mean, there's so much new construction, people moving to the area, thinking that they could take the train to Boston. So development is centered around the South Attleboro train station. And one thing I'm thinking of in particular is there's a 350 unit housing development with retail in the street front within walking distance of the train station, which is developed just because it's near the train station, not for any other reason. MassDOT has replaced the sidewalk between that and the train station, which was kind of complicated because the embankments had run down. They had to change the landscape. They had to do a lot of things, but they've already done that. That's already been repaired to allow walking distance to the train station. And I believe part of the plan, which is at 100%, includes a walkway from Newport Avenue to the station, so you don't have to go through the whole plaza. I mean, this is in place. It's also on a GATRA route, which is the other thing I wanted to mention, is this connects our gateway city in a lot of ways that makes a huge difference. The question came up at the groundbreaking for our homeless shelter last week. How does this connect with the South Attleboro train station? They're not particularly near each other in the city. And the answer is that this opens up employment opportunities closer to Boston for people in Attleboro who may be lower income. They can get the better paying jobs in Boston. And by having the train station, part of this plan is that RIPTA will move their parking berth over to the train platform, and GATRA will move their parking berth over to the platform. So what this will do, it allows public transportation to work the way it's supposed to. You can take regional transit from Rhode Island, from Massachusetts, from the eastern part of Attleboro to the southern part of Attleboro, connect to commuter rail, have access to good paying jobs in Boston. So this allows a lot of the prosperity that people were thinking, and because you will be able to use regional transit so much more effectively, it means less people will have to use their cars. And there's a further benefit. As we have changed, we used to be known as the jewelry city. And when I moved to Attleboro 40 years ago, it was all boarded up storefronts. And now it's a high-tech city. And some of these businesses are expanding in the city and they can't get workers. So this would allow reverse commuting. People from Rhode Island could commute there. People from closer to Boston could commute to Attleboro, and would help us develop our economy in so many ways. I'm not going to, this is just a comment. I'm not looking for a response, and I don't want to take too much of your time because I'm mailing you some pretty lengthy stuff too. I'm not missing any opportunity to advocate for this train station. So thank you all. Thank you, Jillian, for your work, and good to meet you, General Manager Eng. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hawkins. We appreciate your participation in this process sincerely, and we look forward to providing a response to your letter. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Crichton.
Hi, okay, sorry, thanks for unmuting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you to Ashley, to Jillian, General Manager, great to see you on here. Very excited to work with all of you at the T, both as an elected official, but also the Senate Chair of Transportation. Appreciate all the hard work that has been put in to this CIP, and very excited to work with the new Haley fiscal administration, as well as Secretary Fiandaca. I've testified before many boards on this subject matter, and I'm sure folks are tired of hearing me. We've also submitted written testimony, so I will be very brief. Just wanted to highlight a few key issues. My name is Brendan Crichton. I'm the State Senator for the 3rd Essex District. I represent the communities of Lynn, Linfield, Marblehead, Nahant, Saugus, and Swampscott. 4 years ago, I shared very similar testimony before the then Fiscal Management Control Board, which approved phase 1, as was referenced in your presentation, of the commuter rail electrification process, including the Fairmont line, the Environmental Justice Corridor, which consists of portions of the Newburyport-Rockport line, as well as the Providence-Stoughton line. The benefits of decarbonizing our commuter rail network are many. We can take cars off the road, reduce carbon emissions, improve public health outcomes, and create easier access to jobs. By modernizing, and electrifying our system, we can improve reliability, frequency, and affordability, which will help bring riders back to the commuter rail. Unfortunately, since that vote, we've seen very limited progress since 2019, when the vote was taken. We've also seen a continued investment of taxpayers' money in outdated diesel locomotives, which is also reflected in this current spending plan to the tune of over $500 million. While this CIP creates a section related to regional rail, which was shown earlier, in very modest funding, it contains no specifics around the funding for regional rail phase 1 electrification. We don't know the specific investments that will be made in the next 5 years to move this important effort forward. This document only includes generic language for future rolling stock and rail transformation planning studies. A CIP should be a declaration of the MBTA's short-term goals and long-term vision. We would like to see it include support to bring the Rail Transformation Office to its full working capacity so that they're able to do the necessary planning, procuring, and design work needed to make regional rail a reality. We also want to see more progress on the decarbonization of our bus fleet. And I know the T has been very much committed to this effort. This document includes funding to support the bus electrification strategy with a target completion in 2040. But for both rail and bus decarbonization efforts, we would like to see a more specific breakdown of these investments. This CIP should include a detailed forecast of what investments will be required to complete phase 1 of commuter rail electrification, as well as year-to-year progress metrics and cash flow needs. With a formal schedule, we will be able to better achieve meaningful regional rail and bus electrification progress. Finally, we know that track, power, signal, and communication upgrades throughout the subway system have been a priority in recent years, and a lot of funding has gone towards these efforts. The work is vital for addressing the backlog of our state of good repair. But despite this emphasis in these investments, many of our subway lines still have speed restrictions and slow zones. As such, we would like to see this document include an update on the scope of work that has been completed, what additional work needs to be completed, and the schedule for the remaining work. Our riders deserve to know when they can expect the system running at full speed again. I want to thank you for the opportunity to testify tonight. Much of this was outlined in a previously submitted letter from the legislators representing the Environmental Justice Corridor. They include Senator Sal DiDomenico, Senator Lydia Edwards, Senator Joan Lovely, Representatives Armini, Cahill, Capano, Cruz, Giannino, Ryan, and Wong. We must restore the public's trust in their public transportation system in a more detailed vision for bringing our commuter rail, bus fleet, and subway system into the 21st century is a way to do that. Thanks again so much for your attention to this matter and for having such a public process for folks to weigh in. I know our municipal leaders have also submitted testimony, and many from our community will be doing so as well. Really appreciate your consideration for the issues we raised here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Crichton. We really appreciate it. A member of the CIP team, Alistair, actually has a comment for you as well in response to what you said.
Thank you, Senator Crichton. It's Alistair Soares. We have met a few times, head of rail transformation. So I did want to come back on one point which I'd like to clarify, and I don't want to sound like we're being defensive, but we are not buying any new diesel locomotives. We are investing in some state of good repair work, which is purely to keep the service running as is now. And we fully intend to invest, as we said, in future fleet. And that is the target. And the only reason for the slightly ambiguous phase is we're looking at ways to phase the rollout and potentially run a pilot on the Northeast Corridor, as we've discussed in the past. So it isn't, we aren't trying to stay in the past or stay with diesel. We are definitely investing in industry outreach and looking at new equipment that's all basically decarbonized. So I don't know, Gillian, do you want to add anything to that? Sorry.
I was just going to say, thank you for engaging with us and sharing your thoughts. We appreciate your comments and everyone's feedback. That is why we are all here, and we are all committed to, I think, the same wonderful vision for the MBTA in the near and long term. So thank you for your comments. We will be reviewing them more closely. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Oh, Senator Crichton, is your hand raised? Okay, we'll unmute you. One moment.
So I fully appreciate this is a public hearing and people aren't here just to see elected officials talk. So Alistair, I just wanted to clarify, and I appreciate you pointing out. So this CIP, this 5-year plan, does not make any investments in any diesel rolling stock, or I guess any diesel related investments here. So you're saying it's more of
it is
the station.
I have to be very careful. State of good repair for existing locomotives to maintain the service is part of the CIP process. So there is some refurbishment of existing equipment, and that's just
so you're just not buying new, but
correct
investments in diesel.
Yeah,
it was a 500 million figure off on that.
I no idea where that number came from. We are buying some coaches, which is again state of good repair to replace ones that will no longer be safe. That's the what is it?
They would go on diesel.
Those can be either electric or diesel. So those are just coaches which can be hauled by electric or diesel. It's ambivalent. Right. And then
I appreciate that. I guess omit the part that I criticize you for the diesel and keep everything else in there about our need to buy some EMUs.
Of course. Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry for the back and forth. I know this is not how it's supposed to go. I appreciate you accommodating us.
Yeah,
thank you.
Perfectly fine. Everyone else in the room, we'd just like to note that if we can please speak a bit slowly, just so that our interpreters are able to translate this properly. Okay, interpret this properly. Okay, now are there any other elected officials or staff that would like to speak at this time? No. Okay, great. We'll now open it to the general public. Mela.
I didn't expect to be first. Yes, I put a little question in the chat about what becomes of the public comments, but you can read that. I just heard this back and forth about diesel, and my understanding is that diesel, that the enhanced, quote unquote, electric buses like run for maybe 1 mile on electricity, and they are diesel buses. So the procurement of diesel electric buses, if we're going to call them by their proper name, that would go against what was just said, I believe. I'd like that question answered. And the other is that we've been discussing fair transformation and the exorbitant cost of fair transformation. And I wanted to know, make a recommendation around, not doing fair transformation and spending the $800 million or whatever it is on that, and, really focusing more on getting people back onto the MBTA and giving a free pilot on the T instead of that exorbitantly priced. Those are my 2 points. Thank you.
Wonderful. So just to start, I believe the earlier exchange regarding the diesel locomotives was just regarding the commuter rail, not in reference to our bus fleets. And then regarding your comment in, I believe, the chat about the public comment period, what becomes of the comments. So we review all of the comments in advance of the finalization of the CIP. We do present a summary of those to our board in advance of their review and approval of it. And we do post responses on the MBTA's website to the major themes that we have received comments on. So we do take a lot of time to review and respond to all of those.
Would that be happening on the same day as the vote? When it's presented to the board, or is there a final presentation before a vote is taken and not at the same meeting?
There at the May meeting, we do present the final plan along with a summary of all the comments in advance of the vote by the board.
Okay, and I was under the understanding that those double-decker trains are diesel locomotives and not EMUs, based on the information in the CIP. Okay, I'm done talking.
So I think I'll just step in again very quickly to clarify. So locomotives are ambivalent as to, or independent of coaches. Coaches are just hauled. They have no power. The difference with EMUs is, which stands for electric multiple unit, is those have power in every single or every other, what you would call a coach. So that is the difference. So the double-decker coaches we are procuring do not have any kind of power. They can be hauled by electric locomotives, which is kind of the intermediate technology that we could use on the Northeast Corridor. So that's the reason for the reference. But in reality, those that are being procured are to replace ones that are single level coaches that are on average 30 to 40 years old and are well beyond their usable life and do cause reliability issues with the current service levels. So that's the reason. This order was put in quite a long time ago and was delayed by COVID. So that's part of the reason.
Thank you. We're now pulling up a question from the chat, which says, well, it's more of a comment, which says, I would ask that the MBTA reconsider the process of procuring future electric locomotives, especially with the current plan to use battery electric mixed mode locomotives, and instead seek full funding for the full electrification of the commuter rail network and future phases of the regional trail transformation. Thank you for your comment. Next question from Evan Foss.
Hello. First off, thank you to the new general manager and to Alistair for answering my questions at the last CIP meeting. He did turn my mind around a bit about battery power on the commuter rail. I'm still not in love with it, but it makes more sense to me now than it did before. What still has not made sense to me, however, is the AFC 2.0 program. We have AFC 1.5 that's only a couple of years old, built on top of AFC 1.0 that's only from 2004. Pieces of billion-dollar fare infrastructure should outlast consumer automobiles, and I know a lot of people with cars older than that. So at what point does this thing get reconsidered? A lot of the assumptions that the CIP was based on were from the former general manager, Poftak, repeatedly asserting that the operating budget was fine, and now we have ceiling tiles falling and numerous other basic maintenance problems. At what point does that balance get revisited? I realize that's a larger question than the CIP group that's here can answer, but it's something that needs to be in people's minds. Along the way, we still haven't really gotten a good explanation of how we're going to deal with a fire from a battery-powered bus. These buses have serious flammability issues, and although I know that changes have been made to the proposals for the different bus depots, the reality is as numerous fire marshals will attest, you cannot put out a lithium battery fire. You just kind of have to let it burn. And we've had a few of them. In fact, the one that, the bus that you were planning on buying, the New Flyer XE40, so here's a product photo from Hamden, Connecticut's fire department. They've had other fires. There was one from a different bus manufacturer in Pennsylvania. SEPTA bought a bunch of buses from Proterra. The frames cracked, and then the buses caught fire. That bus, as far as we know, was just spontaneous. The preliminary NTSB report listed a leakage of coolant into the battery pack, but you know, the battery needs to have its temperature controlled. I haven't heard a specification for what the battery temperature control is, or what your plan is in the event that you have a bus that's potentially going to catch fire. France tried to roll these out in Paris, and they ended up recalling all their battery buses. Stuttgart, Germany tried to roll out battery buses, and they had a bus depot that burnt to the ground. You decommissioned all of your trolley buses, but the transformers and things are still there. That infrastructure ought to be put back into use, and I really feel that you ought to be reconsidering the move away from wire and mimicking what Seattle did. Thank you.
Thanks, Evan, for all of your participation throughout this process. We definitely appreciate all of your thoughtful comments, and we are going to be sure to make sure that everyone at the T who works on these specific programs is aware of them if they're not already. So thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Carlton? One moment, Carlton, we can't hear you. We're just going to unmute you. Just one moment. You just, I think, Carlton, you muted yourself again. Just one moment. We're going to unmute you. Okay.
How's this? Did I get it right?
You got it right now.
Thank you for the very interesting piece. I chair the Energy Committee here in Bridgewater, and I'm also vice chair of the Community Preservation Committee. One comment, and then something that's happening here in Bridgewater with the new zoning for MBTA. First of all, there is a medium scale wind generator on MBTA lines down by the correctional facility in Bridgewater. Been there for many years, and I've never seen it turn yet for generating energy. So getting to zero carbon needs to be an important goal, as you have said. But that windmill seems to be just a windmill out in the Netherlands and not doing any real good. So I would just ask you all to look at that again and make sure that it is actually being run and creating the energy that we need for the country and the state and the town. The other point on the MBTA zoning, we have a serious concern. Our station is located on the campus of Bridgewater State University. It was done years ago, and the zoning that I'm talking of came out before you probably really started in this whole process. But the problem is, if we were to do the zoning, and we've already done our action plans and that kind of thing, we had a workshop with the town council last night, very important information gathered. But the fact is that we really can't find the land in Bridgewater that we can do the obligatory zoning, because the university land is there and it just, and forested land. It doesn't work for Bridgewater to, in fact, meet the housing goals that the state has put on us. The question is, there is an opportunity to, in fact, move that station north towards Spring Street in Bridgewater and actually have us meet an economic development goal, a housing goal, and other goals here within this community based on that. We're very excited to be able to do that. The problem is, I don't think we're on any list to get that station moved. I know that new community and economic development director has been in contact with all the authorities that are in play with this, but I wanted to be, as a citizen, to come in and say, we really need some serious consideration for the movement of that station to the north, so that in fact we can meet the goals that were set out in that zoning. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Brian?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry for just being outside. So I gotta say, like, I appreciate, like, having like these meetings, and also like, taking this public feedback. I gotta say, like, I definitely echo a lot of the issues people have brought up with like the electrification plan for the commuter rail. I definitely think that focusing on like the Fairmont line is like a great idea. It's like a very good first starter for commuter rail, like electrification, as it is like a line that has a very high population density and will get a very large amount of use. But I would actually like suggest something different. I ride the 66 and like 39 quite frequently, and what I found is that even in areas where there are like bus lanes that are near the curb, like on Beacon Street, they're almost always blocked by double parked cars, making it so that the bus can never really use them and has to go back into traffic, which could lead to very long delays during rush hour and results in very long trips, or like lots of delayed buses, resulting in like in mainly like 40 minutes for a bus. It just happened to be a few times. I know that like ATC enforcement is kind of like a very thorny issue with the states, but like, are there any plans to like work towards actually implementing it in the future, if you could like find a way to get it approved by any chance? Yes, that's just my question.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to take that one back for tonight, and we will have to get back to you. I apologize.
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Jillian. Joshua?
Oh, hello.
Yes.
Okay, I had a question about the current capital projects that are going on with the like station maintenance, for example. I think it's, I guess from my perspective, I live on the blue line. It's difficult for me to see the need to spend more money on many other capital projects when currently there are still some ongoing things that should be remedied. Like, for example, in which state, in Suffolk Downs, the whatchamacallit, like the overpass ramp to connect from one part of the blue line to the other, like to go across lines, is still down. And there are many other there are many other stations that have issues in terms of in terms of just not being fixed. So I guess my question would be, how is the money moved, or how's the money allotted between capital projects that are currently ongoing and ones for the future, such that the currently ongoing ones get remedied as effectively as possible? Thank you.
Yeah, so as we mentioned during the presentation, when we do our CIP development process, we look at and evaluate a whole host of capital needs across the entire network, ranging for repairs and replacement of elements at our stations to large rehab and rebuilding of certain assets and facilities. And so it is a balancing act that we have to consider within the constraints of the financial capacity we have, and the condition of our assets. So that is something we evaluate on an annual basis and take into consideration as we kind of prioritize where the funding should go. So it's not as, unfortunately, it's not an easy answer. It kind of depends, but we do continually evaluate the condition of our assets as we are prioritizing projects for funding so that we are attempting to repair and replace the most critical assets first.
Thank you, Jillian. And Ryan, actually for your question, if we can circle back to this, we have Justin Antos in the room who can provide a few comments for you.
Yeah, Ryan, sorry, I couldn't come off mute fast enough, but I do have some answers for your questions. First of all, we do understand that the capital investments we're making in bus lanes in partnership with our municipal partners need to be protected and function, and that involves making sure that cars are not parked or are driving in our bus lanes. To advance both that goal, we are first trying to make it a ticketable offense in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to drive in a bus lane or park in a bus lane or a bus stop. Right now, even if a law enforcement officer were to try to enforce something, is not a ticketable offense at the moment statewide. So we need some legislative changes there, and our legislative team is pursuing this at the state level. Second, from the team's perspective, we can try to take away the need for so much enforcement with the design of the facility itself. We've had some really good luck with the center running bus lanes, for example, that you've seen on Columbus Avenue in Boston. And we're looking to expand those even further. Because that design of that facility moves the buses to the middle of the road, they compete for the curb space less with drivers or delivery services or what have you. So I hope that answers your question. One, we need legislative change, and two, we're trying to work on it with the design of the facility itself. But we do understand it's important to protect our capital investment in these facilities for buses so they work.
Thank you so much, Justin. Ryan, hopefully that helps alleviate some of the questions that you had. We'll now move this over to David.
Hi, I wanted to echo Senator Crichton's concerns about the lack of specificity and particular budgeting allocations and timelines for the modernization of the regional rail, specifically electrification. I also want to echo Evan's comments about disappointment in the focus on battery technology for the buses, and I'll extend that also to the locomotives as well. Those are both comments, but I have a question which is kind of a niche question, but I understand that Amtrak is planning to sell off their ACS 64 locomotives that they're currently in use on the Northeast Corridor. Has there been any discussion about maybe purchasing these locomotives to run on the already fully catenary lined Providence line? That just kind of feels like a pretty fast as well as probably relatively inexpensive solution, not to mention it keeps all that money in the family, as it were, right? So that's my question.
So I'll step in. It's Alistair Soares again. So we actually did talk to Amtrak about leasing some ACS 64s. That currently has not proceeded due to a shortage. They will be releasing them in the medium term when they receive their new Siemens rolling stock. So the window where we needed them, they're not immediately available, which is a bit disappointing. And I guess the other point, unfortunately, I have to clarify is not all the stations we serve on the Northeast Corridor are currently electrified. There's one gap in the Massachusetts section, and there is no catenary wire, however you want to phrase it, in the station tracks south of Providence, which we also serve through Rhode Island. So those two issues do kind of lend it, unfortunately, back to either waiting for those to be electrified or using a battery option, which can be retrofitted either to a locomotive or to a multiple unit. So there are several different options, and we're investigating all of them. And as I say, we have not given up on the Amtrak ACS 64s. We're still looking to the medium term, but that's currently not an option for us, which is a shame.
Would love to see a more ambitious plan for laying more catenary wires. Thank you.
Noted.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions or comments? Okay, we don't have any more comments left in the chat and no more hands raised, so we can end this meeting early unless anyone has any final comments or questions based off the conversation that we've already had. Okay, great. Oh, Ryan. Ryan?
Yeah, just quick ones, like kind of like circle back to the whole bus lane discussion. Like, are there plans like not like physical segregation between bus lanes and normal traffic, like as in like Jersey barriers or like concrete barriers or anything like that?
For the most part, our design guidance right now does suggest looking into physical separation between bus lane and cars. We usually have some conflict where there's right or left turn movements where vehicles need to cross a bus lane. But for the most part, we have shied away from something as hefty as a Jersey barrier and have stuck with more flexible posts at this point. But we're always open to suggestions.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Great. So you all can leave additional comments through from Thursday, March 23rd through Monday, April 24th. And you can email us at cipengagement@mbta.com, and I'll send that email over and chat now, as well as in postal mail. And we'll also send you the comment tracker tool as well. Timothy, I see that you have your hand raised. Is this a brief question or comment?
Yeah, so sorry, I was just reading the question I put in the chat because I think someone missed it. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so is there a project to repair the out of service stairwell in Park Street Station? Because Park Street is a major stop on the T and the lack of serviceability of a major stairwell at Park Street should be addressed. The current SIP only has a project number for signaling, and if this is not currently budgeted as part of good repair, it should be considered as a separate project to ease the use of transfers between the green and red lines at Park Street Station.
Sorry, the repair of the stairwell or connection of a stairwell?
The repair of the out of service stairwell at Park Street Station.
Okay, sorry. There is quite a bit of funding in the MBTA's capital plan to repair stairs across the network. So this is something that we are establishing a program to help address by evaluating and then repairing them as possible, when possible. So this is something that we're evaluating regarding that specific station. I am not sure, but there is funding overall to address that challenge across the system.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. No more hand raised, no more comments. We really appreciate all of you for giving our comments and feedback today. You can send additional comments and feedback at cipengagement@mbta.com, and we'll be ending the meeting early. Thank you all so much for your attendance and taking time out of your day to give us feedback. We really appreciate it.